Hey guys, welcome back to Man Cave Meals. My name's John Setzler, and today I want to show you this new ugly drum smoker that I've put together. This thing, I started on this back around the first of the year, or late December. I started collecting pieces that I wanted for this, and then buying other pieces that I needed for it. This is an awesome smoker. They're easy to do, they're fun to do, and it's just it gives you a sense of accomplishment when you cook some great barbecue on a smoker that you built. So I want to show you this one, show you how I put it together, show you the pieces, show you how it works, and let's get started. Okay, basically what we start out here with is a 55-gallon drum. It's a steel drum. Sometimes sourcing these is a little difficult, or it can be a little difficult. This is the third one of these I've built, and I have sourced all of my drums from Craigslist. And I'm going to show you some pictures here on the side of the screen. I got lucky this time, and I found a brand new unlined drum for $40 on Craigslist. I had to drive a little over an hour away to get it, but it was worth it. The fact that this one didn't have a liner inside of it gave me a head start. It made it a lot easier to prep this drum and get it ready to go, because there's nothing but steel there. Some of these drums that you'll find have tan colored liners or red colored liners in them, and the general theory is that you want to take those out. I don't know, really, to be quite honest with you, how much it matters if you take those out or leave them in. There's a lot of people that'll tell you a lot of pseudoscience about why those need to come out, but a lot of these drums are food grade drums, and I don't really think that liner is going to be a problem. So do whatever you might. Take it out if you want, but if you plan to take those out, it's a chore. I recommend getting one of the weed burners at Harbor Freight, and then you just work your way around the outside of that drum. You heat it up till it's cherry red hot. It'll loosen that stuff up to where you can use a wire brush to brush it out. But the drum, like I said, is typically the most difficult piece to source and get started. The rest of the stuff you need is easy to come by. The heart of this operation is a charcoal basket. If you're good at metalworking, putting something like this together will be easy for you. It'll be cheap. I suck at metalworking, and I wanted a good quality charcoal basket, so I bought one. I bought this basket from a company called UDS parts.com. This is a 12 by 12 by 12 basket. It's a little shorter than 12 by 12 here. It's maybe 12. The actual charcoal basket's probably 9 inches deep, 12 inches wide, 12 inches high. So it's got a handle on it here up front where you can lift that into your drum. What you do, you fill this guy up with charcoal. Briquette charcoal tends to work better in most drum smokers. You can use whatever kind of charcoal you want, but I get long, very nice burns using Kingsford briquettes. One of the things I liked about this particular charcoal basket is that the bottom of it here is also an expanded metal design, and it's got this plate underneath. This thing serves two purposes for me. I can put a fire starter underneath here, light my charcoal from the bottom if I want to. There's all kinds of theory on lighting these things. I've done it every way you can imagine, and I tend to like lighting mine from the bottom for various reasons. But this plate also serves as an ash pan. When your charcoal burns, especially if you're using briquette charcoal like me, it generates a buttload of ash. But with that plate on the bottom, it makes it fairly easy to lift this out of the drum and not leave a whole lot of ash behind that's got to be collected. So this is the next piece you need after you get your drum. You need a charcoal basket. There are a lot of options. Like I said, you can buy charcoal baskets or you can build one yourself. But this size right here is about perfect, I believe. 12 by 12 by 12 or 12 by 12 by 9 maybe, in this case for actual capacity. Holds enough charcoal to do about anything you're ever going to want to do in an ugly drum smoker. The next thing your ugly drum smoker needs is a way to hold some grill racks in place. And I just use stainless steel bolts for this. These bolts that you see here and here, I don't know if we can see that one on camera or not. They're 1.5 inch long, 1/4 inch bolts, and I put 3 of them in, and they're equally spaced where I can set a Weber 22 inch Weber kettle grill grate right in there. Now in my design here, I've set up to where I can have 2 of these. This first one I've set in here is 6 inches deep, which is plenty deep for doing Boston butts and briskets and ribs, but there's going to be some cases where you're going to want a second rack. So about 4 inches or so below that, I put a second rack in where I can go to a lower level. Now if I want to smoke a really big turkey, I've got the clearance I need to do that. Or if I want to smoke a couple of big turkeys, I've got the clearance I need, because the lid on this one is flat. I can't have anything taller than that, but that gives me 10 inches or so of clearance. Now, you can also use 2 racks. You can get a second one of these and have racks in both positions. And this one I've only got 4 inches of clearance. I don't have a lot, but if I was going to smoke several racks of ribs, I've got the space here to do that. I typically don't smoke tons of meat like that at one time, so what I'm going to do with this second rack is I'm going to set this thing up to where I can do direct grilling as well. I'm going to visit a local metal shop here, and I'm going to have them fabricate for me a half moon basket that consumes about 1/2 of this grill grate, and maybe it's going to be about 2 or 3 inches deep, where I can load it up with lit charcoal and put another grilling rack back up here above it. I can have a direct zone on one side and an indirect zone on the other side, where I can direct grill, have a lot of space to do that. That's just something I'm going to do. I've got another custom made grill grate coming for this. I'll show you a picture of it on the screen. I'm really proud of this. The guys at the Burn Shop, I believe they're located in Wichita Falls, Texas, made this for me, and I was real happy with the price. This guy was only $100 delivered. I was really stoked with that. I gave them my design idea, and they had a proof back to me the same day. I paid them, and then even later that day, they told me that they showed me this photo of it you see here. It hasn't even arrived yet, but I've been really stoked with those guys for a custom grill rack if you're interested in that. Otherwise, you could just use 2 of these Weber racks. These Weber racks are $20 a piece. They're not very expensive. But back to my bolts here. Let's see, which one can you see? These are 1.5 inches, 1/4 inch by 20. I think the 20 is the thread count. And there's a 1/4 inch nut on this side, and I've got a washer. I've got a lock washer actually on each side, holding those in place. So that's all you need hardware wise to hold your racks in place. And it's pretty simple. So let me look at the next thing we need to look at. We're going to go back to the charcoal basket, because when you're cooking on a ugly drum smoker, you're going to want to have a heat deflector as well. That charcoal basket just fits down here. It just sits on the bottom of the grill, and I'm going to turn the camera a little bit here where you can see that and see how it works down inside the grill. It just sits on the bottom. Now, when a lot of people build these ugly drum smokers, they may put a third rack in where they can cook on 2 racks and have a rack to hold a heat deflector down even lower in the grill. I don't do that. I've got 2 other plans I use. Now, if I'm not going to cook on my lower rack, which I don't most of the time, I can put a grill grate in there, put a pizza pan on it, and there I have a heat deflector. But if I'm going to cook on both racks, I can set that same pizza pan directly on top of that firebox and have a heat deflector. I'll be cooking over indirect heat, just because I've got a block there. It's just a simple indirect setup. So that kind of covers how this is built. And in the video description also, I'll give you a list of the parts I made. I spent about $325 building this. I spent way more than you have to. You don't have to spend that much. You can spend a lot less than that. There's companies out there that have got kits you can buy for less than $200 to get you going if you've got your own drum. So there's a lot of options. So let me show you a couple of the other things that I've done here. Okay, your smoker's got to be able to breathe. So you've got to have an air intake and an exhaust. I chose to use one of these slider style intakes on this one because I'm going to do some experimenting with some temperature controllers, and this makes it really easy because most temperature controllers have a setup that is designed to run on a Kamado grill, and this is the same kind of air vent that's on a Kamado grill. In fact, this particular air vent belongs on a Kamado Joe Classic, so it's the same dimensions. So you can set it as closed or as open as you like to get what kind of airflow you like. Typically, when I'm running a drum like this naturally aspirated, I set my lower vent about halfway open. It doesn't really matter, and I control mine from the top. So now that you've seen how the air gets in, let me show you how it gets out. I put a 2-inch diameter exhaust stack on here that's just a bolt on, and it's got a flap on it where you can control how little or how much air you want flowing through this grill. This one, I tightened this up enough where I've got some tension on there where it fits nicely, where if I take the lid off, this isn't going to move on me. But like I showed you that intake vent, it doesn't really matter where I have that set because I'll control my airflow in the grill right here. If I want to cook with that lower vent halfway open like that, I set it about right here, and I'll be able to run that grill pretty solid at 250 degrees until my charcoal runs out, if that's where I want to go. If I want to run it warmer, I'll open it up more. But I'll let that settle in over time, and just let that control the airflow. There are cheaper ways to do this. There are also a lot more expensive ways to do it. This one I like. It's very well made. This also came from UDSparts.com. If you're interested in building a drum and don't want to build all your own pieces, those guys have a lot of pieces that you need. If I remember correctly, I paid about $20 for this. I'll put that either here on the screen or in my video description as well, along with the whole bill of materials. I also bought a lid handle from UDSparts.com that's really nice. This is another like a $20 piece maybe. This is bolt on. It's real easy to put together. It's got a nice stay cool piece on here, which makes it easy. My configuration here is messed up a little bit. I bought a lid hinge that didn't work out for me. I bought it from UDSparts.com also, and it's not the fault of the hinge that it didn't work out. It's the fault of this dumbass that was trying to put it together. As you can see, I've got some holes back here that I've had to plug back up with some bolts because I couldn't get that thing on just right, and it didn't work out for me. So what I'm going to do now is I want to be able to handle this lid without having to set it down on the ground. So what I'm going to do is they make some hooks. I'm going to put a hook on the inside of the drum right here where I can pick this up with one hand with that handle and then just hang the lid on the back side of the grill, and that'll give me everything I need. So that's what my lid looks like. The next piece I put on this grill is this big fat 4-inch diameter barbecue thermometer. I picked this up at Academy Sports. If I remember correctly, that was $25. There are cheaper options for that also. That one I had to calibrate. If you buy a thermometer like that, definitely check it in boiling water. This one was reading about 60 degrees low, but it's got a calibration screw on the back, so you can very easily set it just right. This one's right on the money. So I've put it in there, and I've done some checking with it. You're going to want to do some testing. You may want to recalibrate that for the drum based on a digital temperature reading from the center of the grill. It's not real critical. Like I said, this one varies a little bit from a digital probe set up in the very center, but it's close enough. This is barbecue, it's not rocket science. Okay, on the back side of this grill, I've created myself a port where I can run temperature probes inside the grill. I don't know what this thing is. I'm going to put a picture of it on the side of the screen here. I bought it at Lowe's, and it was either in the electrical or the conduit section or something. It had a rubber piece in the middle of it that I actually took out because, I don't know, these companies like Thermalworks, I've got several Thermalworks devices that have got big fat bulbs on the probes that need a lot of space to run through. My Flame Boss has got an alligator clip attached to the pit probe where it wouldn't fit through there with that on it. So that's just open, and that hole is about, I don't know, a ½ inch. I think it's exactly a ½ inch. It's not going to create a problem, enough of a airflow issue to change anything, but you can't run probes into an ugly drum smoker through the lid. If you do, the lid won't close. You could, if you wanted to, run them up through there. You could go in through the lower vent and bring them up. That's always an option, unless you're running extremely hot for some reason or another. But I just wanted mine up there, and if it would create an airflow issue of some sort, I would just stuff a little wad of aluminum foil in there with it to block the airflow. But like I said, it's not going to create enough of a problem there to even have to worry about it. This is not the original paint that was on this drum. I decided that I wanted to strip the original paint off and I put down a high temperature primer. It's some of that 2000 degree. I actually use the Krylon brand primer. It's an engine paint or an engine primer. And I put down some Rust-Oleum. It's kind of a satin black grill paint that's rated to like 1200 degrees on top of that. I wanted it to be, you know, fairly rust proof. And you know, if it does ever show signs of rust, I can always touch it up. It's not going to be a problem. Since the inside of this drum was bare steel, as you saw in the original pictures I put up, one of the first things I needed to do is season this drum. And as you can see, it's almost black inside now. It's seasoned very well. So what I did to do that is I just took a rag and soaked that rag in some vegetable oil, and I rubbed the inside of this thing down completely, and I also did the underside of the lid the same way. And now I've got a really nice rust proof or rust resistant seasoning on this drum. So that's about all there is to it. If you have any questions about this build or questions about using one of these things, let me know. Just leave a comment, because like I said, this is the third one of these I've built. I've given the first two away, and I mainly gave them away because they weren't built exactly like I'd like to have them. This one's a lot nicer. This one's a lot more solid than what I've had in the past. And I just built it the way I wanted to build it. I wasn't really concerned about the cost, but I didn't want to spend the money to buy a pre-made one. I looked around the companies that make these things. They make them really nice, but they start out at about $800, and I just didn't want to do that. If I was going to spend that much money, I would just spend $400 and buy the 22-inch Weber Smoky Mountain, which is very similar to this in configuration, and it's ready to go. I just wouldn't want to do that. So here's the drum. Everything here is, like I said, if you got a question about it, leave me a comment here and I'll answer it. And probably the next time you see me pop up here with a new video on Man Cave Meals, we're going to cook something on this drum, and we're going to run it naked. We're not going to run any kind of temperature controllers on it. I'll show you. We'll set this thing up with charcoal. We'll let it stabilize, and we'll probably just let it cook overnight, and we'll throw maybe a Boston Butt on there. So until next time, this is John Setzler with Man Cave Meals.